Welcome, everybody. It's the Thresholds of Reality, the show that Sam usually does the intro for, where we do the unexplainable, the mysterious, the paranormal, anything that's out of the realms of the normal. We are here with Jason and Jeremy, Netflix stars, filmmakers, writers, paranormal investigators, demonologists, anything it seems like that happens to be in the same realm as us is what they are. So sit back and let's get the show started. Let's see. Hey guys, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with us.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's a pleasure. Definitely a pleasure.
Absolutely. Jesse, speaking of the intro, Jesse Marcel lived right there, not too far down the road from me, actually.
Yeah,
Really?
You're close proximity, aren't you, Jeremy?
Yeah, he lived in Holman, Louisiana. So, I mean, that's not too far.
So, you guys we were talking backstage, and I mean, you guys have pretty much done it all. What got you into all this that you guys do?
Well, here's the thing, like you mentioned in the intro, we both come with pretty well-rounded amount of experience, on the filmmaking side of things, of course, the paranormal side as well. Jeremy brings a lot to the table. We partnered up doing multiple paranormal films. We're in post-production on one now. Jeremy brings a lot to the table as a Cajun demonologist, right? So there's a level of experience that, especially in the paranormal realm, that has been instrumental. Also on the filmmaking side as well. Of course, Jeremy, I'm gonna let you speak to a lot of that yourself, obviously. But what brought me into this genre is a couple of different things, and it's kind of really a funny story how me and Jeremy met, and it was kind of an off the wall. And I don't even know if I could call it a coincidence. It was really kind of a paved pathway, how we just inevitably met. And it was actually off of Facebook, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And for some reason we struck up a conversation. We had an opportunity to work together on one project, finished that up, and just built a really good friendship and good partnership. And the decision was, that was an area of interest for both of us. For me, coming from the creative filmmaking side of things, the first project we worked on was on Hallowed Ground, which is a paranormal thriller. It was the first movie I've ever produced that had a paranormal ring to it. Everything I've done prior to that was typical, A-class mysteries, things of that nature. So that's kind of what that was the gasoline to the fire on what brought me to the table.
I mean, everyone usually has like that one thing that really leaps them into it. Something usually happens.
Yeah.
As what happened to each of you that puts you into the paranormal, because it's usually something, a haunted house, you grew up, something happened.
Well, for me, so whenever I first got into paranormal was probably around 2000, 2001. I mean, it was so long ago that Ghost Lab was on television. So that goes to show you how far back this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my cousin of mine, we were watching Ghost Lab on TV, drinking a couple of beers, and decided to go play ghost hunter in our local cemetery. And we ended up capturing a full body apparition. And of course, we wanted to capture it again. So we formed a paranormal team. And this is back when, there wasn't a whole lot of paranormal teams out there.
Mm-hmm.
And make a long story short, we had a woman contact us that claimed she went to the Myrtles plantation and a demon followed her home and it was terrorizing her and her 3 children. Well, we had a little local TV show at the time, and we thought she was crazy, to be honest with you. But hey, if you let us film it and put it on TV, sure, we'll come. Well, as faith would have it, that case changed my life, because I ended up seeing the entity in a solid form with my own two eyes in that house, and it forever changed my faith in one and the power of the Lord, and the path in life that was chosen for me. After that, I got out of the paranormal and I wrote a book about my experiences called The Dwelling, a Dark Entity. And I had a priest friend me, and he became like a father figure to me. And he ended up training me in the art of demonology and spiritual warfare and exorcism. And I've been doing that ever since. It's now pretty much part of who and what I am.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because me and Jereme do come from kind of different sides of the fence, so to speak, right? So from a level of experience, Jereme has been more involved in the paranormal field than I have. I could tell you, I've had a couple of instances where I've experienced paranormal activity. That was kind of a turning point for me, and of course there's a lot of details that go into that, because originally I was a skeptic. Right. I was just that guy that was like, yeah, no such thing as a ghost, right, or a demon, but the truth of the matter is spiritual warfare is real, and it's very real, and the interactions that are played out daily, sometimes sight unseen, sometimes seen, right? It happens constantly. So for me, the couple of interactions I had, which was a full body apparition, not detailed. And then an oppressive form of a demon, right, is what convinced me to kind of move into the territory that I'm currently in. And of course, meeting Jereme, getting to know him. Matter of fact, I got some great advice from Jereme regarding those situations. That was a big turning point for me.
Yeah, I can remember back whenever me and Jason first met. It was almost that immediate connection, because I noticed right off the bat that there was a strong spiritual presence with Jason. And, I can remember we would get into these real deep spiritual conversations. And, even still to this day, I still kind of treasure those deep conversations, because he understood it. He got it. He understood where I was coming from and what I was saying, and what the effect was of what I was saying. And a lot of people really just don't get it for some reason, but he did. And I think that is kind of what, cemented everything together, So.
Yeah, and you know what? So the truth of the matter is, because I'm just going to kind of echo on something you're talking about, Jereme, that and I'm not even call it a sixth sense, right? We could call it a vibration, whatever you want to call it. There are some folks, obviously, who do get it, and they do see things, right, and they feel the oppressive nature sometimes of paranormal activity. The truth of the matter is, the majority of the populace, right, is, and this is just Jasonology, right? This is just my opinion, but they go through life, right, and they go through their day-to-day activities, and they really just don't give it a second thought, right? So those of us that have those high vibrations, right, you feel that change in the atmosphere, you feel that oppressive nature, you sense something's not right, and you're able to connect with others, and that's what took place with me and Jereme. We have come up with some great creative ideas based upon that alone, but we do have some very heartfelt conversations that are very deep, biblically based, right, and paranormally based. So yeah, that connection is extremely strong.
We in my house right now, we have a kind of a nuisance spirit that's kind of is in our house right now, and it likes to hang out in my son's room. And it's funny, I was talking to him about it the other night, because it's the same. It's like a blonde-haired person with like a red and black sweater, and it likes to lunge at you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
your son's a teenager, huh? It's preteen.
Yeah.
It hasn't just gone after your son, though, right? The first time you guys spotted it was your wife.
Yeah, it lunged after my wife. And then like it likes to walk out of my son's closet, and it likes to poke its head up from the bed. And at first it scared him for a long time. And as he got a little bit older, we were talking about it. And what he does now, and he likes to taunt it now. That's what he likes to do. He likes to
Fight
go,
fire with fire, huh?
Yeah.
hey, if you're going to be here and you're going to mess with me, I'm going to mess with you.
Well, I mean, that, but here's the thing. I mean, he's doing the right thing in a way, because you have to take control of the situation, right? Energy feeds off of itself. So negative energy naturally attracts or feeds off of negative energy. Mm-hmm. So, fear is a very powerful, primal, energy, and, not to fear it, that kind of takes away from it. So, I mean, you're able to take control of the situation. I tell people that all the time.
Like when we were talking about it the other day, he was like, because my son and I, like my son plays guitar and stuff, so he's got guitars in his room, and
right on.
He was like him and I are learning like a song by Metallica called "Disposable Heroes." And the last time it happened, he was like, "You know what? You think you're bad? Why don't you play some Metallica?" Show me, like that's what he was doing.
Understand, man.
Yeah. He's like, "You think you're badass?" He's like,
"You don't play that." Out the room, huh?
Yeah. But
it's real. And I just want to touch on something else, right? So fear is a massive metric, right? And that is that paranormal activity feeds off of it, right? The demons, they feed off of fear. Mm-hmm. So when you take that stand, right, especially if you take that biblical stand, right, they can't deal with that. Another thing I want to talk about too, Jereme, and I'm not saying this pertains to your son, right, and that is open doors, right, and that is the things that we do sometimes and maybe even listen to. Everybody has a different opinion on this, and that's great. This is just my thought process that depending on what you're involved in, right, there is a very big potential that you could open doors, right, and give permission for demonic oppression, for attachment, even physical manifestation. So I tell people this all the time, and that is that, listen, you have to be careful what you do, right? You really do, because there's a thin veil between the physical world and the spiritual world, and it doesn't take much to poke a hole in it, right?
Yeah.
So, Jimmy, you might want to talk more on that, because you do have some more background in that. But in my life, right, and in the lives of other people that I've spoken with, I've seen it firsthand.
You're absolutely right, Jason, and especially let's just connect this to the paranormal world. Paranormal investigators, you have thousands of teams that go out and do these paranormal investigations every single weekend, right, in these dark energy places. And whenever they're on their way to the investigation, they're the best of friends, right? And then after spending a couple of hours in this really negative location, they're mortal enemies whenever they come home. And the reason why that is because think of it as standing by a campfire, right? The smoke gets in your clothes, and it takes a while for that smoke to evaporate. Well, that's the same thing when it comes to this negative energy. I mean, your body absorbs this negative energy, and it takes a while for it to absorb. And, just to dive a little bit deeper into this, anytime you communicate with the dead, and this is very important, all right? And paranormal investigators do this all the time. So people think of Ouija board. When we think of a Ouija board, okay, that's dangerous. Well, doing an EVP session is just as dangerous as playing with a Ouija board. All right. Anytime you communicate with the dead, you are running the risk of unintentionally inviting a demon into your life. Yes, demons have to have a legal right to someone. You have to give it permission. They cannot do anything against our free will. A lot of people don't understand that. But here's the thing. When you're doing an EVP session and you get personal with what you perceive to be a small child, when in essence it's not, it's a demon pretending to be a child. Why? Because you're going to be more prone to open yourself up to it if you think you're communicating with an innocent child rather than a male spirit, and you unintentionally invite them in. Well, how do you actually invite them in? Anytime you get personal with a spirit, you are inviting it in. Remember, there is no rule that says spirits have to be honest with you, for one.
Can you give us
like
an
when
example?
The police interrogate you.
Yeah.
Don't talk to cops. Can you give us an example of what you mean by getting personal?
So anytime you start asking personal questions about yourself, this happens. This is what makes Ouija boards so dangerous, because people tend to ask, who am I going to marry? They ask personal questions about themselves. In other words, that is getting personal and inviting it in. See, one thing whenever it comes to paranormal investigators, and it's really a defense mechanism, even though it's not by design, it just happened to fall that way. When most paranormal investigators are communicating with spirits, they're not asking questions about themselves. They're saying, why are you here? Why are you bothering this family? All of that's not personal questions coming from the person that's asking the questions to the entity. So anytime you ask a direct question between you and the spirit pertaining within the two, that's called getting personal.
Yeah, stuff like, like, where's my grandpa, or is my grandpa okay, or stuff like that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and look, the truth of the matter is this, right? And we talk about earthbound spirits, and we talk about demonic spirits and earthbound spirits. We're it's a totally different topic of conversation compared to what we're talking about now. But demons, right, in general, are deceivers. Okay, they're deceivers. I mean, they're fallen angels. Their power was not stripped of them, right? Mm-hmm. So they have that ability to emulate. They have that ability to pose as that grandpa, right, or as that child. And what better way to attack someone is in a moment of grief, right? What is the reason why most people even sit down at
No,
they got him.
They got him. But I just kind of want to touch on what he's talking about, and you're absolutely right. Demons are they're parasites in a way. They wait for opportunity. And one thing I always tell people is, you know how you have a lot of paranormal investigators that go hang out in cemeteries and do investigations in cemeteries. I am sorry to tell you, but think about this and really be honest with yourself. Why would I, when I die, go hang out in a cemetery where my body is that I absolutely have no connection to anymore whatsoever? I'm not. I'm going to go hang out in a place that I was comfortable with, that I was familiar with when I was alive, such as my home or a building. I'm not going to go hang out in a cemetery. All right. Now, demons, on the other hand, they love to hang out in cemeteries. Why? Because the loved ones are grieving over the loss of their loved ones, and they are spiritually and emotionally weak. So they may find an opportunity there. Not to mention those pesky paranormal investigators going there all the time, thinking they're talking to Uncle Bob because it says so right there on the headstone. And when in fact they're not, they're talking to something else. And then next thing you know, they got an attachment.
It's funny you say that, because people, this is something where people have gotten mad at me for and stuff, and I go, why, I have to go to the cemetery to talk to Uncle Joe about what's going on. And I'm like, why do you have to go there? I've never understood that. Like, I understand that, we've given our loved one or whatever a resting place for their body, but why go back there to talk to them?
Absolutely. For me, I don't know, it's just me, but there's two worlds. There's the physical world, and then there's the celestial world. Yeah. And to me, the celestial world is just as visible as the physical world that I live in. In other words, I'm around people all day long, but I could still sense and see the spiritual world. Look, there's entities and spirits everywhere. Okay. That's a whole nother world. And for me, I guess it's very easy to tap into that world, the celestial world, for some reason. I guess it's because I don't know how to explain it. I guess whenever you get it, you just get it, you understand it. And switch, when you turn that switch on, it's just kind of like the lights come on and you can see everything in the room. That's the best way that I can describe it.
And influence is a big thing too, right? And again, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say this. A lot of folks may agree or disagree, and that is, the thought process, the mind, right, is the target, and demons are known for attacking the mind. You go through society, right? You live in society. You go through your day-to-day activities. You experience things, right? During the day, you experience, thought bombs, as I like to call them, so to speak. just kind of echoing back on what Jereme was talking about, you really made me think about that. There's demons everywhere, right? The spiritual realm is around us all the time, so there's always warfare going on, right? So if you have the celestial side, you have the negative energy or the dark spiritual side. There's always warfare taking place, right? And the influences that come out of that in our world, right? The physical realm is the influence of negative behaviors, right? I mean, I'm not saying that folks don't make bad decisions. Everyone has free will, okay, and that's important, free will, right? But it can be influenced. It can be influenced by what you expose yourself to. It can be influenced by what you dabble in. And listen, I tell people this again all the time, and that is there's a huge popularity, right, in the paranormal field, and folks are like really intrigued in it, and a lot of folks aren't real experienced with it, so they go jumping into things that they really shouldn't be jumping into, and the next thing you know, you've got an attachment, right, or you've got demonic oppression, so on and so forth. So again, a line that you have to tread very carefully.
Well, let me ask you guys, we've had several folks on the show, not a lot, maybe two, who you said dabble, but they consider themselves pros in demonic contracts.
Oh my God.
So,
that's not
so
good.
what are your thoughts on folks who reaching out to demons to enter into agreements for material wealth?
Jereme,
You know what? I'm gonna be straight up honest with you. They're stupid for one, and they deserve what they get in the end. Look, anytime you make the bargain with the devil, trust me, you're not gonna get the better end of the deal in the end, and that's just all there is to it.
No. Now,
I just don't understand.
Here's the thing: there's validity to what you're saying, right? There's validity to what you're saying. It happens, and for me, I believe it, right? But going back to what Jereme's just talking about, right? You're walking on a tightrope, and what seems to be pleasant to the eye right now, in the end, it has a destructive nature, as is the case with anything Satan or a demon is involved with, right? And that is material wealth is temporary, right? If I took $100 bill right now and put a match to it, it's going to burn. Okay, I lose the value of the $100 bill, right? So the agreement you're talking about, the contract you're talking about, will always come with a price, always. And that price may not even be something that you pay for. It may be your family, right? Or it may be a loved one.
Bloodline curses.
Yeah. So generational curses are a big thing. And again, right, I know a lot of folks have their own beliefs, and it's fine. I respect that. I'm a firm believer in God, right? I'm a firm believer in angels and heaven, also in a real hell, Satan, demons, right? Everybody's different, and it's fine. But at the end of the day, the same thing holds true, and that is, regardless of your belief system, right? If you engage in a contract with a demonic entity, or Satan, right, for the sake of material wealth, then I promise you, it's going to have a destructive end. It always does, right?
Absolutely. For one, if you're making contracts with demons, obviously, for a fact, demons are real. If demons are real, then that also means God is real. Okay. So it's just like today, you can't have one without the other. They both have to exist. So, all right, at the end of the day, so there is that thing called eternity, for wealth for a short period of time. And may I ask, are they wealthy? How did that work out for them?
I would not say they didn't seem like they were super wealthy, but one of them lived in New York City, right, Kyle?
Yeah.
She seemed nice. I mean, she's playing. She's got her foot in a lot of different camps, I'd say. She's got the kind of a Christian representation, a Jewish representation, representation. She's kind of playing a lot of sides here.
So in other words, they all have their gig, and you see this in the paranormal a lot. Everybody, so the paranormal field has really become diluted in so many ways. It's not about, so most people when they get into the paranormal field, they do it for the right reasons. They do it because one, they want to, solidify to themselves that there is life after death. And two, they truly want to help people. So they start doing residential cases and stuff like that. Now there's a purpose, right? So you're actually helping people. Me, I never communicate with the dead unless there is a purpose behind it. But then it becomes more about me. Oh, look at me. I want attention. I want to be on TV. I want to be famous, and then it just becomes not about helping anybody anymore. It all becomes about me. Okay. When you think about that, what is that? That me, love. So you're loving yourself, right? You're wanting attention. You're drawing all this attention to yourself. That is a negative energy. All right. And so you're attracting everything. And look, let me tell you something, guys. Look, I'm not saying it's just because I've been on television, but I have seen people that has been willing to sell their soul
for sure
to be on a paranormal show. Hey, let me tell you, quote unquote, being a para-celebrity is not always cracked up to be. I still have to go to work every day. Okay, I still have a wife to put up with. I still have people having every day.
We got to make sure Tammy don't hear that part.
Yeah, it's not always cracked up to be. But the thing is that people will come up with these gimmicks. Okay, I know a girl that she claims to do what they call spirit writing. Okay, and she thinks it's a spirit that allows her to do it. But when truth comes to push, the cat was let out of the bag, that it's just a gig. Just like all these people that claim to have haunted dolls. They bring all these haunted dolls to like these Comic-Cons and para conventions. Let me explain something to you. If you truly have a cursed doll, all right, it will destroy your life. You're not going to just carry this thing around with you everywhere. It is a gimmick. It is like a wrestling gimmick that people do.
True statement. Yeah, and look, true. I mean, it's true, right? So going back to what you're talking about, pride. It comes down to pride, right? I mean, the attention and things of that nature. I mean, the fall of Lucifer was based upon pride, obviously.
Thank you.
Yeah, and look, the norm in today's society is that everybody's into paranormal. Everybody knows everything about paranormal, and again, if you could really scrutinize that and get down to a very small percentage of folks who are actually in the fields to help people. Right. And that's what it's all about. I mean, let's just face it. Demonic attacks occur frequently. Right. There's folks out there who are experiencing oppression, who are experiencing things in their lives, and they quite honestly don't have an answer for it. Right. So having that true investigative team come in, right, and rid them of that issue, right, to assist them, it means the world. A lot of, and I'm not even going to get into further thoughts on that, right, with names and other shows and content. But the truth of the matter is, you could commercialize anything, right? You can commercialize anything, but in the end, the nitty gritty is it helping people, right? And that's what we do, right? We help people, and that's why we're in the field, not just the paranormal investigative portion of it, but the filmmaking portion of it as well. And that is to not only help people, but to send a message, right? Spiritual warfare is real. It's very real. So yeah, that's some good points you brought up, Jeremy.
It was kind of the basis of the show, right? Sam was to help people. That's kind of what, when we started this, I had questions about stuff, and
it was to connect and find answers for Kyle's personal experiences.
Sure.
I'm kind of an outsider looking in. I have never really had any sort of paranormal experience. We've been to a couple ghost hunts, and I had next to zero interaction with any spirits.
Because you're a closed circuit.
Yeah, the psychics all told me I was a closed circuit.
I always refer to ghost hunting. I always refer to ghost hunting like fishing, right? Sit there for hours and not nothing happen. And all of a sudden, for 2 minutes, everything goes crazy, and then it goes dead again. So that's common. Don't feel bad. I mean, look, you have to spend a lot of time doing that to actually capture anything worth saying. Oh my God!
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's almost like watching paint dry.
Yeah, or waiting for the hot water to boil on the stove.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and look, some locations have more activity, right? Depending on, And again, just I'm kind of jumping back on the demonic side of things. And Jereme, you could probably speak to some of this as well. And that is that, again, Jasonology, but demons enjoy a sense of pleasure, I think, in initiating some type of catastrophe, right, or some type of bad event, and occasionally they come back in a way of celebration to that same place. And Jereme, I'm going to talk about one specific house that you're really familiar with, and that was the one in Springfield with the satanic store that was uncovered.
Right, that was on. That was on.
Yep.
I forget what show it was on, but it was called The Demon House. That was the name of the episode.
Yeah. So
Paranormal Witness. That's it. It was on Paranormal Witness.
Yeah. So to be truthful, right? I think that occurs very frequently. So folks who have authentic experiences, if you really spend the time to really just delve into the background of the house, the background of the environment, right? You would oftentimes find something that took place. Obviously, some type of event of negative nature that took place there. That could potentially be a calling, right? It could be a place that demonic activity frequently visits. But anyhow, just a thought.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about paranormal investigation is that there's a lot of historical study that goes on.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And look, you have to do that, right? In order to really fully understand the metrics behind the activity that's taking place, there's something that leads up to it. There's something that leads up to it. And I could tell you this with a certainty that, not everything, right, is indicative of, or some, I don't think I'm using the right word there, indicative of demonic activity, right? So if you're experiencing it, wherever you're experiencing it, chances are a little bit of research will oftentimes uncover the truths behind it, or what's causing it.
Yeah, absolutely too. And then you also have to throw in the physical aspect of this as well. Like for an example, I can't tell you how many times, I'll get a call. Somebody thinks that there's a demon in their house. Well, for one, a demon don't just show up. They have to be invited in. All right. So this stands for vampires, right? Vampires, you have to invite them into your house. That stems from demonic activity. Christ himself doesn't intrude in your life. You have to invite him into your life. Okay. So why wouldn't that be hold true for demons? But here's another thing that a lot of people deal with. Energy, again, is very effective, and people don't understand how much energy affects one's life. People that live a really rough life and, they have a lot of hurt and pain inside. Well, we as human beings, we tend to tuck that pain away so the world don't see. Well, we're harboring negative energy. So next thing you know, everything negative is happening in our lives. Everything. Car breaks down. It's just one thing after another. That is because we're holding on and harboring this negative energy. Well, the human body can only sustain so much. And then what happens is over a period of time, it goes into a home and the atmosphere where the people live. Then it starts affecting all the other family members. And at a certain point, that energy becomes self-aware. You give that energy life by your subconscious mind. That is what it is feeding off of. That is what it is controlling it. It is feeding off of all that pain and suffering that you're going through. That's why it's important not to hold on to the past. Look, you can't live for tomorrow if you're living for yesterday. So I say that all the time. And those type of hauntings, I call them self-manifestation. They can be scary, and it could almost seem like a true demonic haunting, but it's not. And unfortunately, doing an exorcism or anything like that doesn't work on those things because it is a self-manifestation. You have to help these people let go of that pain and release it and all of that stuff and forgive those who have hurt them, not for the sake of forgiving them, but so that you can live for tomorrow. Let yesterday go. And I deal with that a lot, guys. As Jason said, not everything is demons. All right. And look, especially in the paranormal field, everybody says everything's demon nowadays. Okay. Folks, that's just simply not true. Okay. Anything goes wrong in life, that's the first thing they want to blame it on is a demon. All right. That's just the way it is. That's the society we live in. Now, trust me, They are out there. They do exist. Okay, but not everything is a demon, and I want to make that perfectly clear right now. You know, people are just like this situation here. It can seem like there's a demon, but it's part of your own self creation. You created this thing, right? So you have to release it.
I'm going to tie that into something else too, and I'm going to use it. It's going to be twofold, right? Self-manifestation is definitely a very real thing. So, you know, you talk about the power of the mind, right? So as you think is what you become. You know, and if you guys have ever experienced this before, where you've had a negative event that took place in your life, and it was very hard, right, to be positive, because your focus was so much on that negative event. The next thing you know, like Jereme was talking about, something else negative happens, right? So you do invite that in, and you invite that that level of I'm just going to call it a mind that's handicapped for the time being, right, because of what you're focused on. Faith is a huge thing, right? And Jereme, probably know where I'm going with this, right? And that is that what you believe in, right, and what you focus on is oftentimes what you're going to experience. Now, I'm not saying that if your mind is focused completely around negative events constantly, yeah, you will experience self-manifestation. And Jereme, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a potential, right, that you could attract demonic activity as well. But for the most part, Jereme's correct in saying that, and that is the first thing that people want to do is say, well, this is a demonic event, or this is a demonic oppression, or what have you, when in fact it's a negative self-manifestation of your thoughts, right? Really funny story. Okay, and again, everybody's belief system's different. I have friends from all walks of life, different religions, even some folks who are atheists who don't believe in God. I had a friend of mine, and he's an atheist, and we were having a conversation, right? And he's a firm believer in paranormal activity and demons, so on and so forth, but he don't believe in God. And I said, well, why don't you believe in God? He says, well, I've never seen him. I said, well, you've never seen a demon, right? He says, no, but I've experienced it, right? I said, but here's the thing, right? You have faith that's real, right? The paranormal world is real. And he was sitting down at the moment, and I said, how is it that you know that chair is going to hold you up, right? And he says, well, it's a chair. And I said, but you have to put a level of faith in the chair, right? You put a level of faith in the chair that's going to hold you up, or you go into a bedroom or what have you, and you turn on the light switch, and you have faith that you're not going to get electrocuted, right? So if your faith is so relevant in the spiritual world, in the paranormal world, or in even the demonic world, but not, in the celestial world, then something's thrown off there, right? Going back to what Jereme was talking about, where evil exists, there has to be good. There's always going to be good and evil, right? And for the most part, folks tend to, I'm not stereotyping anybody here, but a lot of people tend to focus more, right, on the evil side of things versus the good side of things. And why that is, I don't know. I have
Survival.
What's that?
Survival.
Yeah, I mean that's one way of looking at it, so on and so forth. But I think that there is an unusual, mysterious level of interest by a lot of folks, right, in the spiritual world, but it seems to always focus around demonic activity, right? Well, my cup fell off of the dresser. There was a demon that did it, right? So, long story short, my point is this, and that is there are different variables in the spiritual realm, right, outside of demonic oppression or demons, right, as well. We're firm believers in angels, right, celestial side of things. Okay, so again, just throwing that out there for conversation. Jereme, your thoughts may be a little different on that, but.
The only thing I'm going to say is, Sam, and I'm going to answer you this direct question. What side of your existence would you say is purely spiritual?
What outside of my existence is purely spiritual?
What part of you would you say is your soul? What would you say your soul is?
Okay, where I do want to be clear. I am a religious person, and I do seek spiritual experiences. I just don't have them very often, and I do believe in the spiritual. My mother, she has spiritual experiences all the time, but as I've said often on this show, it's not a muscle that I know how to flex.
Okay. All right. But this is what I'm getting at. So your thoughts is purely spiritual. There is nothing physical connected to your thoughts. Okay. Your thoughts is purely spiritual. All right.
Okay, I'm with
That
you.
is what makes me different than you, you different than me, the way we think, right? Everything that goes on in here. Here's the thing. People don't understand this or realize it, but every time you think a thought, you are visualizing what you are saying and what you are listening to. That is
Sure.
called manifesting. Okay.
Yep.
You're taking something purely spiritual from your thought. You're visualizing it and manifesting it into the world the way you perceive the world. Okay. Look, we perceive the world simply through our thoughts. And it's a perfect example. I could look at a flower on the ground and be like, "Oh, look, Sam, how beautiful it is." And Sam's like, "Flower, that's a weed, man. They ain't nothing about it." It's all on your perception and the way you perceive the world through your thoughts, which is purely spiritual. You see,
Sure.
and that's very important. And I think that when people understand that, you're suddenly opened up to a much larger world than just the physical world that we live in. Look, you can have anything in life that you want, and it's called, a lot of people call it the law of attraction. If you truly want something, you don't say "I wish I had" or "I want," because the word wish and want is a negative thought. You say "I will have."
Yeah.
And you play it out in your mind over and over as if you've already got it. Well, guess what? It's going to come. Why? Because you're manifesting it through your thoughts, because the world that you live in takes place purely here in your mind.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that concept. I want to stretch you guys a little bit. When we talk about demons, demons and deception kind of goes hand in hand.
Right.
And there's a lot of deception in our current world right now.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm trying, we have tried, or we are trying to get to the bottom of on this show, is the sudden admission that UFOs are real, and whether or not that's true, or whether or not it is an act of deception. And these are things that are kind of big picture. But I feel like you guys, with your experience, might have some unique insight into that particular conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to jump all into this one, right? And
there you go. Y'all done got it cranked up. It's like a chain.
Those got me fired up on this, right? So not to put down on the advocates of aliens, right? And again, right, we live in a big universe. There's outside of the Milky Way, there's thousands of other galaxies out there, so on and so forth. I'm going to speak from two sides. Okay, one, I'm a Christian man. Okay, and I accepted Christ as my Savior as a young man. I'm biblically based, right? And I live my life based upon those standards. So look, did you get an alien cup? Really? I love it. I know you had that. And so, you go into the book of Revelations, and I'm not going to get into a Bible study right now, right? So you see prophetic events that's laid out in the Bible, right? The end times, rapture of Jesus Christ coming back for the church, so on and so forth, introduction of Antichrist. Okay, that's far enough into the weeds. Okay, back to your question on UFOs, right? Number one, do I believe aliens exist? I'm not 100% sure, right? I think that there could potentially be encounters. Maybe a very small, very, very small percentage of what's reported is actual. Number two, I think that considering the current trends that's taking place in society today, that there is a very high probability that there is a lot of deception going on, right? If you really did some trending data, right, on folks that believe in aliens and that believe in UFO encounters, you'd probably be very surprised to find there's a large percentage of people, right, across our nation who do advocate that and who do believe in it, so on and so forth. So in my mind, again, Jasonology again, and that is that it is very easy to deceive somebody if they're already neck deep into it, right? They already believe in it, so on and so forth. So if I was going to use that as a cover up, and for some reason this is reminding me of Jesse Ventura on his show, but and he just come right out and say it, right? But our government, right? Our government has been known to utilize certain metrics to deceive folks, and so yeah, I think to answer your question, Sam, yeah, it's a very big possibility. Very big possibility, because if you notice, guys, right, within just the past year, the spike just the spike in activity. I mean, or I'm sorry, encounters, and now we've got the Pentagon reporting on it, and we've got government officials claiming, well, there's been cover-ups over the years, so on and so forth. Yeah, it kind of lends credibility to what your question revolved around. That is that, it could be possible on mainstream media, because it's publicized across the nation, right? That it could be used as a potential cover-up for something else.
Yeah.
Usually is.
All right.
Look at this. I'm gonna do this over here. Nah.
Are you guys familiar with Werner von Braun?
Yeah.
All right. What did he say on his deathbed? Anybody know?
I don't know.
All right. He said the New World Order would take control of the world. Yeah. But in order for them to do that, there would be 3 great crises. Okay. The first one would be World War II. The second one would be the war against terror. And the third one would be a fake invasion of space aliens from outer space.
Project Bluebeam.
And he said that on his deathbed. And guess what? It's all happened so far. Now, that's one aspect of thinking about it. Number 2, do I believe that there's life on other planets? Absolutely, because nowhere in the Bible does it say that God says we are the only creation.
That's right.
Angels, and there are many beings that he created. He is a creator. That is what he does. And number 3, which could be the most controversial of all, is that what we perceive to be aliens is actually demonic activity. Why? Because what does the Bible say? All right, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but a principality and forces of darkness in high places. Satan himself is the ruler of the air. All right, and have you ever seen a UFO, how they just zigzag all over the world, all over the place real fast? To me, that's spiritual activity. That's not, something physical. Are you guys familiar? What is that noise?
We're getting some feedback from Jason's mic.
No,
my mic.
Yeah.
All right, so have you guys ever heard of something called the Nephilim?
Yes.
All right, so there you go. The Nephilim. So let me ask you a question. Why would space aliens abduct us human beings and do genetic experiments with us? Because you can't breed a cat and a dog together. It doesn't work that way, okay? But what is so important about our DNA that they can use? Think about this. All right, so the Nephilim, all right, no longer have bodies. God said that they would rule forever, rule the earth with a hunger, with a thirst that could not be quenched. Well, guess what? What do demons want to do? They want to inhabit bodies, right? So the Nephilim, demons, whatever you want to think about it, they want to have a permanent body that they can inhabit. All right. So what we perceive to be the Greys, EEs, genetically engineered aliens, is something temporary. So what are they doing? They're getting our DNA to create a hybrid race, which is a permanent vessel for them to inhabit. Just my thought.
Well, you know what? So look, I mean, there's some validity to what you're saying, right? And I'm gonna back it up just a little bit, okay? And I'm with Jereme on this, and I think that a large portion of the alien encounters, right, and the activity on the UFO side of things is demonic, right? So. For those that are biblically based, and I'm just going to throw this out there just for food for thought, right? And and you talked about a cover up, okay? So if you really start digging into the Bible, for those of you who believe in God, who Christ is your Savior, and you're familiar with the rapture, right? The rising up of the church, so to speak. You've seen all these books written over the years about the rapture, right? And how according to the author in their mind, that the greatest cover up to that would be, millions of people go missing than, an alien abduction, right? An alien abduction. And it's really funny because, for me personally, I believe that's a very big potential. Other people that don't share my beliefs, they believe differently, and that's fine. But the truth of the matter is, if you really started looking over the past year, when all these UFO encounters started occurring, you see an escalation of them just within a year, right? Just within a year. And there's many of them that really identify close to demonic activity. Okay. The spiritual world is awakening, right? We see it on the news every day in our culture, throughout the country, right? There's things happening that have progressed just within the past few years that honestly, back when, I don't know how old you guys were, right? But back in the 80s when I was a kid,
that was good old days.
Huh?
That was the good old days.
That was the good old days. It was unheard of, right? But if you really just started really started analyzing time in itself, just over the past 5 years and how things have progressed, right? You're beginning to see a huge escalation of spiritual activity, the UFO encounters, so on and so forth, right? Prophecies, right? Prophecies that have been fulfilled, that's in the Bible. And I think that folks, again, each to their own, right? I think that if folks would stop long enough in their day-to-day life, really, and just started thinking about some things and analyzing things, they're liable to see more than what they've ever thought they could see. So. But again, deception, right? Deception. Satan's in the business of deception. So is demons. Just want to throw that out there.
I'm gonna kind of take a left turn here, and
Sure.
How did, like, I know, Jeremy, you've done a couple shows. You did the 28 Days Haunted, and how did you get into being able to do those couple shows, and how did that help with your guys' what you guys are doing with filmmaking and everything else?
Well, so I mean, I got into it. So, I've been on about 8 or 9 different shows. Just Ghost of Morgan City on the Travel Channel and Netflix. 28 Days are the two most notable. Look, they've always found me, to be honest with you. Ghost of Morgan City. I got an email from a producer and wanted to interview me. They interviewed me. They picked me for the show. 28 Days Haunted, I guess, because being on Ghost of Morgan City, the producers liked, I don't know, they chose me for some reason to be on 28 Days Haunted. So, and then I'm working on a project right now. It's just always seemed to come my way, and one thing that I love to do is I love to use the time that I have in front of the camera as a learning tool, to teach, just like 28 Days Haunted. I mean, I got oppressed, okay, and the show really doesn't do a good job of explaining how it happened, but nevertheless, it did happen. But I was able to face my fear, all right, and I think that's something that people can really get something back from. I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten said that, the fact that I was able to challenge that entity really touched them in a positive way in their life. And it's those kind of messages that mean the world to me, because you help somebody realize that, there is hope out there. No matter how far down you fall, that you can always find your way out. But how does it relate to what me and Jason does is like I said before, we have some really great ideas and stuff that's never even really been out there. And I think it's because, as I said before, I see the celestial world just as plain as I do the physical world. And we want to tell that story. We want to tell that story of that unseen realm, just like, we did with Unhallowed Ground. That is a great concept. And there's a lot of, Jeremy that's put into the script of that, as well as a lot of Jason that is put into the script of that. Actually, Jason completely wrote the script. But that is Unhallowed Ground is a very powerful storyline, because there's so many different stories that, has to be told there. Like Cade, the lead investigator, he's struggling with his own demons. Well, the character that I play, he's struggling with a secret from the past, and he lives in fear. Okay, so in those two things right there is what demons really feed off of. But the way it's written in the story, they're able to prevail in the end. So I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, and there's some interference coming through. I'm hearing it.
Yeah, there it is.
I thought we were getting like an EVP session going on or something.
That's what I was wondering.
I mean, maybe something doesn't want us to be having this conversation, right? So, I mean, that's always a possibility too, as well. Yeah, it's really funny because I'm an actor, right? So some of the things I've done have been just basic plain Jane shows, Breakout King, so on and so forth. Jereme comes from a totally different world from me, and when we paired up and we partnered up, because we shared the same sentiments, right, from a biblical standpoint, from a paranormal standpoint, it just really clicked. On Hollow Ground is really touches on that type of influence, right, and demonic influence, and the hold that it seems to have in some people's lives, and in society in general. So yeah, it gives a clear cut picture of what is really happening behind the scenes, right, behind the scenes of the physical world that we live in. And hopefully can be an eye opener to a lot of other folks when they see the show when it comes out, to open up their eyes to the things that may be happening in their life, right? To give them some type of positive affirmation or influence, so to speak. So, yeah, and it's some great stuff. Great stuff. Jereme brought an amazing amount of experience. Again, like I said earlier, through his participation in these shows that he's been in. And we just made a well-rounded team. Two different worlds, but we think on the same lines, right?
No other heart attacks though, right, Jereme?
No, filming 28 Days Haunted, episode, I think it's 4 or 5, when you see me go to the hospital. I had a real heart attack. I got 6 stents in my heart that night. Funny thing is, they wasn't going to release me to go back to the show, so I had to walk out of there, basically. The producers didn't want me to go back. They was going to send me home, but I refused to let them do so. I knew I knew I was being oppressed, and if I didn't deal with it, that it had the potential to follow me home. The next thing you know, my wife's divorcing me, and my life's falling apart, and I wasn't going to allow that to happen. So I went back and took back spiritual control of it, because I voluntarily, you see, I don't want to get into the whole show really deeply, but if you watch the show in the very beginning, I had a lot of spiritual authority. Well, Brandy would get attacked because it couldn't attack me. So metaphorically, I laid down my spiritual sword, and I knew I would become the target to protect her. For one, I'm the male. Number two, I knew what I was getting into. So it was my job to protect her. Well, I thought, I know the signs of oppression, right? I'll be able to deal with it. Well, little did I not understand that when you can't separate yourself from that energy, that location, it has a tendency to take over. I don't care how educated you are on the subject, how powerful you are, it will take control no matter what. And we were literally locked in there. We could not leave for 28 days. So that's kind of how I got into the situation that I was in. A lot of people, ask me, "Oh, you got possessed? Are you still possessed?" I was never possessed. I was being oppressed. There is a huge difference there. But yeah, no heart attack.
Hey, so
I've lost about 100 pounds since we filmed 28 Days Haunted. Trying to get healthy. It sucks. It really does, because I'm a Cajun boy and I like to eat. So.
Hey, so real quick, since you're talking about 28 days, right? So me and you had a conversation about this, right? And that is that during that stint, you become exhausted, right? Your immune system weakens a little bit here and there. So just maybe talk a little bit about that oppression, right? What led up to it? I mean, you guys went in, right, guns a-blazing, swords drawn out. But over time, over that period of time, you begin to wear it down. Do you think that was some of the leading indicators that increased that oppression? And this is a question to you, Jereme, just to have you talk about it a little bit.
All right. So we're going to actually do this. Then we're going to dive into 28 days.
Yeah, I know. But look, it's because I've got a point I wanted to drive home.
Right.
I can't drive it home until you answer that.
All right. So look, all the other two teams, they were in a luxury place. Me and Brandy, we were in a morgue, all right, which is now it's a general store, but that morgue has a really dark history. There was an occult that used to meet there, and they would do certain worship and do all of these different things. Well, whenever we went in there, if you watch the first 2 episodes, right, I'm walking around with my Bible and I would say spiritual warfare prayers. Well, anytime that happened, Brandy would get attacked, all right, physically. And it got to the point to where Brandy said, Jereme, if you continue to do this, I'm going to tap out. All right, I'm not a psychic medium. All right, our job was to find out what happened there over the period of 28 days. I'm not a psychic medium. Without her, I become useless. So I agreed to her that I would not do it anymore. Now, metaphorically, on a spiritual level, what am I doing? I'm surrendering my sword. I know now that it's going to attack me because it couldn't attack me before, so it attacked Brandy to get me to stop. I'm the threat because I done the religious rites in the beginning. I'm the one that it's ticked off at, okay? I knew I would become the target. But as I said, I know the signs of oppression, all right? I know possession doesn't happen overnight. I'll be able to deal with it. I'm strong up here, okay? Now, the first mistake that I made, if you watch the show, and this is very important, it's very subtle, but it's the difference between light and day. I said, if you want to get to me, if you want to get to Brandy, you got to go through me first. That's challenging it.
Yeah.
That is something I should have never done. Okay. You never challenge these things. But that was the first mistake that I made. So now this thing is coming after me. Now, throwing stuff, making itself known, that's not going to scare me. I've been doing this for a long time. Now, where Jason's getting at, what it done was over a period of time, it clouded my mind. Okay. Slowly but surely, think about it. Energy feeds and the body slowly absorbs it. It clouded my mind. All right. Now, the big thing that it done was to take me out of the game was it made me want to sleep all the time. Because if I'm sleeping, guess what? I'm not a threat. All right. So I would sleep constantly, no matter what. When I wake up, I would feel sick, nauseated, angry, just very angry. And watching back at the show, there's one moment where you could really see that I think that this thing had a lot of influence over me. And that's when I'm going into the bathroom and Brandy says something and I do the devil horn thing. That's something I would never do. All right. Watching that, I'm like, wow. So this goes to show you how I've been a demonologist for 12 years. Okay. I've handled some really high profile cases, but I'm just as susceptible to this as anybody else. I'm not a superhuman. Okay. I make mistakes. Just like I said, whenever I challenge it, I made the mistake. All right. So, but at the whole time as this happening, I'm thinking Brandy's nuts. Okay. I'm thinking Brandy is nuts. She's just irritating me. All right. Through the whole process. This is when I knew there was trouble. And that's when she spoke to a historian while I was downstairs sleeping. She called me upstairs and she confronted me. There was a phrase that says troubles will cause that stayed in my head the whole time we were there. And I started just writing it down. Who knows what that means, right? Troubles will cause. That can mean a million different things. Yeah. But nevertheless, I would constantly write it down. Well, after speaking to the historian, Charlie Lawson, the guy that murdered his family, they found a note in his pocket after he killed himself that says troubles will cause. Wow.
Damn.
Wow. So at that moment, I know I am in trouble. And that's when unfortunately, I cried on TV. But I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was being oppressed. I knew it. But here's the thing. This thing had clouded my mind to where I did not know. And I truly did not know if I was spiritually strong enough to challenge this thing and gain back control. I did not think I was. Okay. I really did not. Oh, Lord. Sorry, it's my wife. Yeah, women. But anyway, I did not know.
I've got this record. I'm going to show Tammy. I hope you know that.
I'll still watch it. But I truly didn't know if I was going to be spiritually strong enough to be able to challenge it. This goes to show you how God works, right? I go out there and I have a heart attack. But nevertheless, it got me out of that environment for 12 hours long enough to get my mind back right. God works in mysterious ways, right? Mm-hmm. I had a heart attack, right? Yeah. But it got me away from that location. It broke the chain that the entity had at the time in order for me to start to get back right. And that is why when you see me come back, I immediately challenge it to try to get back spiritual authority, because I gave it authority over me by my free will, by one, surrendering my sword. Number two, saying, if you want to get to her, you got to go through me. So guess what? I had to take back control.
Yeah, and look, like that's where I was going with it, right? And that was, your mind was clouded, and demons are deceptive in nature. They're very good strategists, right? They have thousands of years of experience. Okay, again, they start chewing and they nibble a little bit at a time, right? And Jeremy made a really good point there, and that is when he put that sword down, right? When he told Brandy, and then he challenged it, right? He lost that moment of protection for that period of time. And it comes to this thing right here. And sometimes it's really funny. My 14-year-old just gave me this quote out of the blue, right? And I'm just going to be, I don't know if it's going to be verbatim or not, but it said this, and that is, sometimes it's better to stand, right, than to fight, right? Because even those that stand, they stand because of their courage, not expecting to be able to walk out alive. Okay. So I got to thinking about that. And of course, that's not verbatim, but when it comes to spiritual warfare, right, you have to make a stand, but you've got to make sure that you're making the stand with the right tools, right? So the sword of the Spirit, right, which is the Word of God. That's one of the critical pieces of armor that we use, when we encounter those types of situations. And Jeremy is very good with that as well. But clouding of the mind, that's where I was going at, and that is, the battles always start in the mind, right? They could cloud your mind, they could disintegrate your will. They have an open door at that point.
Sounds like just an absolutely harrowing but also amazing experience that you guys had. It's the kind of thing that you probably only experience maybe once in your lifetime.
Right.
Hopefully only once.
Well, I mean, it definitely didn't feel heroic, whenever it happened, because, again, I mean, I want to really emphasize the fear. All right. So there's a very small clip that they showed before I challenged the entity. And that's me sitting on a bed with the Bible in my hand. I was really, really scared. There was fear. There was a lot of fear, because not of the entity itself, but if I can gain back control or not. And I knew the consequences that if I didn't, I would have an attachment. It would follow me home, and my life as I know it would be destroyed. And I did not want that to happen. And also I knew that this thing was powerful enough. Look, do I think that the demon caused me to have a heart attack? Do I think there was, a pre-existing factors that played a role? Yeah, I think I probably did. But the entity saw, look, the entity's always going to attack what's weak on you. Okay. Yeah. And that's what it saw, and that's what it attacked. And my thought was, this thing's powerful enough to do that. I just had 6 stints. Is it going to attack it again? What is going to happen? Am I going to fall dead? Whenever I go up there and confront it. Nevertheless, I knew that I had to do it. And I guess that goes back to what, Jason was saying, that in the face of fear, courage is the definition of standing your ground and fighting in the presence of fear. That is what courage is. Yeah. And it's just something I knew that I had to do. But at the same time, I still had to respect it. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Anytime you do an exorcism on a house or a person, there's always what they call the demonic last push. The entity is always going to lash out at you at the moment of expulsion. Okay. All right. So when you see that vase fly off the shelf when I confront it, and you see me immediately stop, the reason I did that for 2 reasons. One, it lashed out. That means that, guess what? I gained back control because it lashed out. Number 2, I still respected this thing. So I was not going to push the boundary. I simply went up there to gain back spiritual authority, and that's what I did. So I immediately stopped.
Okay.
That's like a battle of attritions right there.
Right.
Well, where can everybody find you? Where, you say you guys said, well, Jason left, but you guys are working on some projects. Where can people get a hold of
you can find us at Crossfire Productions on Facebook.
That was weird.
Yeah. Well, I'll let Jason tell you about where you can find us as far as Crossfire goes.
Yeah. So sorry about that, guys. I kind of
You're
blanked out on me there for a minute. I don't know what took place, but yeah. So I missed a portion of the conversation, but I heard Crossfire. So Crossfire Pictures is a production company that we formed a couple years back. On Hollow Ground was the first project for that particular for that production company. So we are wrapping up some CGI work on Hollow Ground right now. As we speak, the anticipation is by October it'll hit the market. It's a series. It started out as a television series, right? And did you give them any insight while I was kind of MIA?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So just so you guys know, right? It's a team of detectives who are involved in a series of investigating a series of serial killings. Only to find out that they've been demonically influenced, right? So the chase begins with the demon who's influencing these killings, right? And the gist of the whole project is for a full season where the entity is trying to bring about the end of time before God's timing. So real cool show. Is based out of New Orleans. The CSI team is based out of New Orleans. So that'll be coming out pretty soon. We also have two other projects in development. One is an option on Angel Walk by Roger Elwood, the author, if you're familiar with that storyline. That's basically a story of an angel, right, where God, he doubts God's decision to cast Lucifer out of heaven. So in order to prove that what he did was justified, he sends Darius, the angel, to earth to really just see what type of havoc that Satan and his demonic forces have wreaked upon the earth. So that's one project we have in development that's going to be upcoming pretty soon. So we've got some good investors on board with us. So the premise behind all of this is to push for bigger and bigger projects, right? So up to the $5 to $10 million range, hopefully by 2024. So you'll see a lot from Crossfire Pictures and from me and Jereme on that side of the entertainment world very soon, October at the latest. And of course, it's just going to keep getting better from there.
Awesome. Thanks so
Jeremy,
much.
you got a podcast too, right?
Yes, I have two podcasts. I have one called Jereme Leonard, the Cajun Demonologist, which I really discuss topics involving spiritual warfare, and then I also have one that I do with Nick Simons that was also on 28 Days Haunted called Paranormal Gumbo. So you can find those anywhere you get your podcasts. Paranormal Gumbo, Jereme Leonard, the Cajun Demonologist. You can find me on Facebook, Jereme Leonard, the Cajun Demonologist. Same thing, Instagram, Twitter. You can go to my website, jeremeleonard.net, and, to give you my backstory, more about my background and everything. And I offer, teach spiritual warfare classes, Demonology 101. You can find my book, The Dwelling, a Dark Entity, on Amazon. The Demonologist Prayer Handbook, also on Amazon. So, yeah, that's about it.
You sure?
It was getting a little lengthy, so I decided I'd just do it.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for having us on the show. We really enjoyed the conversation.
Oh no, it was a great conversation. You guys were,
Yeah.
you guys killed it. You guys act like you've done this before.
Once or twice.
Maybe once.
Yeah.
We also want to recognize the chat. Thanks everybody for participating in the chat, and make sure you like, comment, subscribe. And until next time, keep on exploring the edges of the unknown.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.